Hello and welcome to the latest episode in the Lean in Ireland video initiative for 2020. Today I am joined by two superb, experienced leaders. One is called Ronan Hughes, the other is called Maria McAllister. And we want to talk about inspiring leaders. We want to share what we know and our experience has been of good leaders and bad leaders and the impact that those good leaders have had on us. Ronan and Maria, you are very welcome to today's video.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to kick off. I thought it was a nice way to start by sharing examples of when we've seen or worked for or worked under good leaders, and then when we've had the opportunity to work under bad leaders, how that made us feel and the impact that has on people's personal lives. And for me, I have worked with superb leaders in the past, but they have been rare, unfortunately. So I've had lots of experience with bad leaders as well, and I've seen how those impacted me personally. The good leaders, I was going to work happy, looking forward to going to work. I get excited about going to work, and I love being part of a team. And I think a good leader knows how to gel, how to bring a team together, and how to get them working together. So Maria, what is your experience of working under good leaders and working under bad leaders? How have they impacted you, and how has that then influenced the way you lead?
Probably much like yourself, Breda. I've been privileged to work with some fantastic leaders throughout my career. And really by exception have I not had experienced good leadership. The great leaders, absolutely, undoubtedly, you get up in the morning, you want to go to work, you look forward to it, you're a better person with your own team and the team that you're expected to lead throughout the day. They, just give you great inspiration. They motivate you. You're very committed. You want to work hard, and it's just a great place to be, especially when you're empowered to get on with your job and do it well. And equally with poor leaders, and as I say, I've rarely encountered it, but yet I have, and it can be a very crippling experience. So it can be an experience where you don't get up with that happiness of going to work and looking forward. I think maybe if I could phrase it, that it just makes it more difficult. It just adds more complexity and hard work to an already maybe busy, hard working day that is ahead of you. So yeah, that's been my experience. But thankfully, I've had more examples of just really great leaders in my career. So.
And you were lucky there, Maria, and I'm sure they've inspired you then in terms of your leadership. Would you say that some of the positive behaviors that you've seen role modeled with you, that you then role modeled them with your teams?
Yeah, I like it a wee bit to parenting, in that as a parent, I like to think that I take the best and maybe, the not so good parts of parenting as I was growing up, and to then make my formula around that. So, in the workplace, the silver lining of not having a good leader is that it has taught me some, really valid points and areas where to focus as a leader to get it right. So yeah, I like to think anyway that what I've done is taken the best and, use that more, and then maybe try to look at the areas that I didn't recognize as being good in leadership, or good for teams, or good for environment, or good for culture, and made sure that I didn't replicate those traits within my working environment.
Super. Thank you, Maria. Awesome. And I'm taking notes here from everything that you've said, and we'll wrap it up then later on, summarize, because what we want to do with these videos is to have everybody, whether you're a people leader or you're an aspirational people leader, we want you to use our expertise here to test yourself, to see where you are at in all of the little pieces that we bring up here. And could you be better, or have you more work to do on some of those, because you're having a massive impact on your people. Ronan, we're coming to you now. Tell us a little bit about your experience of and the impact that good leadership has had on you, and equally when you see bad leadership, and then how that then has impressed upon you and how you use that influence and experience when you're working with your people.
Okay. Well, I suppose from my perspective, starting with the positive, whenever you find yourself working for somebody that really gets you, that you can really understand, that you've got a link and a bond with, it can be hugely motivational. You end up with all the good words, you end up enthused, you end up enabled, you end up empowered. All of those are brilliant. So those are great things that take you forward, help you get through the tough times, do lots and lots of really good work. It can help you become the best version of you. And that's a great thing to have. And you can have leaders who are middle of the road, and they give you enough space to do those things for yourselves. And that can lead to your own leadership style as well, which is great. Unfortunately, whenever you do come across a bad leader, it can be hugely demotivational. It's like being stuck in a bad relationship in your personal life. It can have exactly the same kind of impact. It can bleed over into your personal life. It can be hugely demotivational. It can be, a huge toll on you mentally, physically as well. And in my experience, I've had a couple, I would say there was two leaders in particular, one of whom was particularly poor, and turned out they were just a genuinely flawed person who I would just like to forget I'd ever met. But I had an interesting experience with another leader that I worked for a couple of years. I just did not get on with everything we did was a conflict, and it ended up me effectively going, I need to do something else. So I left the organization and went elsewhere. And it was a few years later, he reached out to me and invited me to his retirement party. And I was a bit confused by that, because why would he invite me? I don't like you. I didn't like working for you. So it happened that I was in London, and I was in London at the time. So I thought I'll call in and say hello. I'll be the bigger man, And I went in, and when I went in, he was genuinely happy to see me. He came over and gave me a big hug. He was chatting away. And, I was so confused by this. I actually ended up saying to him, why did you invite me here? We didn't get on. And it was quite obvious that we didn't get on. The entire time I was working for you, we were at each other's throats. It didn't work out. And I left. And he sort of explained that at the time, he understood what I was doing and why he was doing it, but he was under huge pressure. He was suffering bad leadership himself. It was making him, his health was suffering. He was in a really, really bad space mentally. And he was doing his best to try and protect us on the team from that. Now, in fairness, he did such a good job. I didn't see that. I didn't see the problems that he was having. And as a result, I was maybe a little bit petulant. I was a lot younger at the time. I was taking it out on him going, well, he's the problem. It's all his fault, So I think there's a perspective and a bit of context is required to bad leadership to try and understand how and why that's happening, which that's something that sort of stuck with me over the years. Whenever I was working with and for people that I found to be particularly problematic, I was trying to understand, why was that the case? What's the context to this? Is there a different reason why it's happening? It mightn't just be me. Of course, sometimes maybe it is, but if it's not, that can help you, give you a different perspective on things. You can work around it and find a better way to move forward then,
Yeah, brilliant examples, Ronan. That's super. My next piece that I want to bring us to is really around how it feels, because I know you've both managed people for years, and I want you to, and this video is also for those who are maybe talking themselves out of going for leadership roles. So I want to hear from you both around how becoming a leader has affected you in your personal development, and also how you feel when you see your people thriving. Okay, so we go to Ronan first this time. Ronan, what do you have to say?
Well, personally, I think it's the best sort of feeling of accomplishment you can have. It's like a proud parent moment, I've been lucky enough twice in my career to have two people that I've worked that have worked for me initially go on to become my boss eventually. And that's been brilliant. It's been separated by a number of years and, organizational changes and restructures. But when you eventually end up reuniting and realize that the person that you're going to be reporting into is somebody that you'd originally hired as a graduate and managed for the first 2 years, I was overjoyed. I thought it was a great feeling, Some people maybe don't deal with that just as well. And I can understand, in the hierarchy of things, maybe that's difficult for some people to take on board. But great for in one particular case, there was a woman I'd worked with for years before, and she'd gone off on maternity leave. And I was trying to convince her to come back to a new job, which is a promotion, and she didn't want to. She wanted to stay off. She was going to stay at home, be a stay-at-home mom, maybe start her own baking business and raise her kids. And I said, listen, in fairness, if you take the job, there'll be a massive step up in salary, and in a year and a half's time, you'll probably be offered a redundancy. You take it then, you'll get much more in terms of payout, and you'll definitely be able to stay at home then and start your own business. And she came on board and went, okay, well, that's the basis on which you'll do it. So she came on, did a fantastic job, accelerated through the ranks, was just brilliant. I knew she would be brilliant at the job. I left, went to a different part of the organisation. By the time I came back, almost 2 years later, I was effectively reporting into her. And she's still there today, loving the job, thriving, doing fantastic work. And it was just great for me to see that whenever we meet up, I regularly ask her how her baking business is going, you know. So it's good to see that happen when people thrive in those kinds of environments and under those circumstances and make the right decision. It's a really good feeling.
Yeah, totally agree, yeah. And Maria, have you got some examples for us or around how leadership changed you in terms of your personal development? And then maybe talk to us about how it feels when you see your people thriving because of the effort you're putting into your leadership.
Yeah, I think there's probably two very stark examples in my career, two quite different ones. But I suppose very early in my career, I remember working for a particular leader who, within a few months of me being in the organisation, she encouraged me to go for a promotion. I would never have gone for that promotion, never, because I was young. I regarded myself as really inexperienced, and I remember her saying to me, you could do this. And just to know that somebody believed in me and saw the ability that I had. And I went for that role at the time, and I was young to be going for it, but I got it. And I got it against other peers who'd been doing a similar role for a long time. But that taught me an awful lot about, you know, leadership and people and how people feel around you and what you can do and the impact you have as a leader. And I actually still, when I moved on from that job eventually, I still have the letter that leader, that line manager then wrote to me. And it's another thing that I tried to take into my own area, is that, you know, to acknowledge if people are moving on, you know, drop that note to them, to thank them for what they did and to acknowledge what they're really good at and to tell them to always believe in themselves, etc. The other sort of stark story is a different leader who, very, very different style to this first one. And it was my next role actually, and the next company I worked for. And a much more difficult person in that I wouldn't actually have said that they had the best leadership skills. But in that situation, I kind of thought, there's some brilliant stuff here, and there's other aspects that I just wouldn't say were great leadership. So I just kept focusing on the best and actually learned amazing things from that particular leader that I then took on to other roles with me as well. And it was more the sort of where you need the strength in leadership. It's the resilience and sort of to have the tenacity to deal with very difficult situations. So I learned a lot from that leader in terms of how to do that. But I still revert back to the original person in terms of how they developed their people and brought their people along. It was more by default that I learned from the second leader some really, really good skills. So in terms of my own, the people I've worked with along the years, you know, I think one of the best things you can do as a leader is actually ask for feedback. And I've never really shied away from 360-degree feedback, because I've learned some enlightening things about myself as a leader through that process, but also, you know, to get the kind of affirmation that you're doing it well and that your people are thriving when I just think as a leader, and for anybody thinking about it, it's the most fulfilling part of a career, as you say, Ronan, to see people developing and thriving because of you. And I have an experience where one of a team member I had got promoted, and you know, a couple of years of really hard work, and this employee was just brilliant, had the best attitude, and all I needed really was confidence and just that support. So I always look at it as, and I would tell the team, I'm supporting you. I may be the team lead, but I'm supporting you. So where you need me and you need my support, I'm there, as opposed to maybe them feeling that I'm kind of telling them what to do or how to get on. I let them tell me and I come in and support them, and that really empowers them very quickly. And I remember at a time, one team get a promotion, really well deserved, absolutely delighted for the work they put in. And the leader of the area and the business unit at that time came down to my desk the next morning and congratulated me. And I remember thinking, what if I missed something, you know, has something happened here? And they said, no, look, that for the work that you put in to actually facilitate that person to, you know, have the self-belief to move on and thrive, and they're still moving on and thriving. And actually that is somebody who I could see possibly one day me even reporting to myself. So yeah, do you know what, they're great days and they're great weeks when something like that actually happens, and they're the kind of things that you just love to see happen more often. So yeah, hopefully that's...
Yes, lovely examples. Yeah, and you've reminded me that I wanted us to talk about mentoring as well. So you've touched there on, you know, the impact of mentoring, and I want us to talk about mentors, being mentored, mentoring people, and I also want to bring in the male allies, how important that is, because I'm very conscious that we could have a lot of women who usually when I coach them, they need some work to help them get confident enough to go for roles, right? So that's what I spend my time at, on DMs on LinkedIn. And I know from personal experience, the impact that mentors have had on me and male allies. So Ronan, I want to come to you and just to talk about the male allies and how important that is. What do you think is the sort of magic dust there? Because a lot of guys I know are willing to and want to get involved in Lean In Together and Lean in Ireland, but sometimes they're not quite sure what to do when they get there. And you've mastered that because I've seen you. So what would you say to other guys that maybe could get involved in this a bit more and become male mentors for some of the women, and for some of the guys to go looking for female mentors? Because look at Maria and the expertise and the quality there, you know, and that's all available to them as well. So how do we crack this?
Well, from my perspective, like I've obviously been, you know, working in technology and financial services for about 25 years now, and there's been huge changes in that industry since I joined as a graduate. You know, obviously from my perspective, it was very different for me coming in as a man, because obviously there was a number of doors, especially in the early days, were open for you just because of that reason alone, you know. However, one of the sort of differences that I sort of faced was because of the way I look. So, you know, I had very long hair and a beard, and as a result of that, I worked with a number of people who were remotely very happy to be associated with me, very pleased with my performance, would meet me in real life and go, oh dear God, look at him, I can't possibly send him out to meet clients. And that's one of the examples I would use, especially when mentoring people, and especially women. So like I mentored a lot of people over the years, you know, and one of the, you know, I'm talking in sort of stereotypes now, but one of the general differences you would find between men and women is a lot of men, when they come to you, no one understands what they're doing, they have a clarity of focus and purpose, and they feel frustrated at the fact that they think they're ready to do something and the opportunity hasn't presented itself. Whereas, you know, from a lot of the women's perspective, you're sort of pointing out to a lot of them, you know, you can do this. You've already done it. There's examples and experience of how you've already achieved this. All you need to do is contextualize it for what it is you want to actually achieve in the future and move forward on that basis. You know, I've had to talk a few guys down off the ledge in terms of, you know, their own self-belief, to say, you know, try and look at it from other people's eyes. I've never had to do that with a woman. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's just the industry that I've worked in, or if it's just, you know, commonplace across the board. It's just one of the trends that I've seen myself. But what women generally do tend to do very well is self-awareness. They know and understand who they are, what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. And one of the big advantages for me in being part of the whole Lean In network has been being able to contextualize that myself. Because obviously I work on teams with lots and lots of women. I work for women. I have lots of women working for me as well. And that being the case, you need to understand how to work together more effectively. And especially if there are trends, things that you do unbeknownst to yourself that could be misconstrued, that aren't helpful, if there's different ways of saying things. And I find it just a really good communication tool. Lean In obviously was set up as an enablement session for women, but I don't look at it like that. I just look at it as a means of getting to know other people, trying to find out more about other people, the industry we work in. And it's been really, it's been good because, like, you know yourself, Brad, in some of the circles we've been in as well, there's been, you know, joining up with different minority groups as well. You know, people of colour, people from different sexual orientations and backgrounds, where there would be huge discrimination in the past, and that just doesn't happen anymore, you know. So from my perspective, I would say to anybody out there who's a man looking to get involved, this is a really worthwhile thing to be involved in, even just for that difference of perspective that you wouldn't normally get from any other groups out there, because all of the other sort of groups tend to be laser focused on things like, specific elements of technology or specific elements of industry. And, LinkedIn's really good for that, where you're looking to try and, leverage a particular element of your CV. But if you're looking to connect with people, I find LinkedIn to be the best way to do that.
Brilliant. Yeah. And to your sort of observation there about the trends that you see when you're mentoring women and men, I've studied all of that to try and understand mine, and realize that is all part of our conditioning. And I would say for male allies to understand what they need to do to help the females in their organization or in their industries, they need to start understanding how a female's conditioning and background and the self-beliefs that she has absorbed are totally different to his. And that's where you get this magic meeting of his confidence and his natural belief quite often. And again, I'm stereotyping too, but when you're if you're a guy and you have that kind of self-belief and very strong confidence, you can then really help a woman to get there and to see how that looks and feels, because that's not often her conditioning. So Maria, mentoring, because I can imagine you are a superb mentor, and I've seen some feedback from some of the people that you have already empowered and encouraged. So talk to us about mentoring, and guys mentoring, girls mentoring. What's your views on that?
I think I would start by saying that, mentoring, leadership, all of these things that we're talking about today, there's a key common denominator in them all, and it's listening. Listening to people and understanding people. And I think both as a leader and also as a mentor, and I suppose we're looking at mentoring just at this point, but it's understanding the person who's in front of you. And I think you need to take the time to ask, to listen, and really understand who it is you're dealing with, and what's going to tap into, I suppose, their willingness to take on board, the mentoring, and to learn from it. So what is it they really need, and what is it they really want? But equally, what are the issues that they have? What has, like Ronan was saying there, what has led them to possibly have the lack of self-belief that they have, and what's holding them back, I suppose, for in many respects. In terms of how I've been mentored, I had a fabulous male mentor for years in one organisation, and I just couldn't have asked for better. Obviously it was somebody who really saw something in me and really believed in me, and I knew that the first time he offered and reached out and said, would you like to come and we can do a one-to-one on this particular issue. And then that led into him just becoming a more permanent mentor for me. And I knew that those sessions would sometimes be quite challenging, because I wanted them to be, and I would have brought a scenario, and, he would have challenged me into how I was dealing with it and made me think of different ways of, well, what about this? Or had you thought about that? Or, do you think you handled that? Really probed how I was dealing with things. And I learned enormously from that. But the environment, and why I learned enormously from it, was because there was just a huge amount of trust there. And equally, I knew that mentor believed in me and really passionately wanted to see me doing well and to succeed. So that's what enabled that whole piece to work for me. In terms of what I do as a mentor, I get very passionate about people I see who have just got, and there's so many people in our organisations who have great ability. And very often, Ronan, as you say, it's more often females. There's just something that holds them back, and they do seem to have that sort of self-doubt and don't think that they can compete at the same level or go as far or whatever. So I think it's just about, I remember one example actually of going to a meeting with a person I was working with, and they'd asked me to go along and help them out with this scenario, and I knew that they could handle it absolutely on their own. And we sat and had a chat about what the objectives were for the meeting and whatever. And I said, look, I'm more than happy to go with you, to support you. Absolutely, that's my job. But I'm going to take a wee bit of a back seat, and I'm going to let you lead on it. And don't worry, I'm there. I've got your back, and we'll see how it pans out. But we talked about the brief in advance, and I made sure that they were confident about what they were delivering. But it was their delivery. They came up with all the ideas, everything around it. Just needed that endorsement that they were doing the right thing. So anyway, we went to the meeting. And they led out with the customers around the table, and had a very difficult issue and subject to approach, but they did it. And I had to interject once, and it wasn't even that necessary, but, you know, I felt I had to say something and add some value, so I did that interjection. But this colleague pulled off a fantastic piece of work and a fantastic result. Couldn't have done it better. So we left the meeting and we were standing outside, and she turned and she looked at me, and she had a big grin on her face, and she says, "Well, how do you think it went?" And I says, "Will you tell me how you think it went?" She said, "I think it was pretty good, wasn't it?" And that was all it took. And I said, "Yeah, it was absolutely, you achieved everything you set out to achieve. Did you need me?" And she looked at me and she says, "No, not really." And that was all it took for that member of my team to then just go for it. They flourished from there, excelled. And that's what the mentoring piece in my mind is about. It's about understanding who you're working with, who you're dealing with, where they need the help, but also there needs to be very clear objectives around it as well, and that they need to understand the areas where they need the help as well, and to know what their expectation is of the mentor through that process.
Brilliant. Wow. What a wealth of expertise we have on this. Loving this. And we're going to have to probably wrap it up soon. And to do that, what I wanted to do was kind of summarize what I've heard you all saying, and the takeaways for either those people who are already people managers or mentors. We want you to think about some things that have been mentioned here in terms of takeaways. And for those who are watching this that haven't yet taken that step into leadership, but are thinking about it and maybe a bit nervous, we have some takeaways for you as well. So for those who are already people managers in some way, what I've written down here, you mentioned, Ronan, earlier, the ease. So I would say to everybody watching this, test yourself right now and see how well are you doing, we'd say on a scale from 1 to 10, on enabling people, empowering your people, encouraging your people, acknowledging your people, appreciating your people, giving them space to learn, and then are you asking them for feedback? So that's some of the wrap up, and I'll let you guys come in here in a wee second in case that there are any other bits that you would add to those lists. And for those who are watching this and haven't quite just taken that step yet into leadership, but are thinking about it, we want you to get mentors. We want you to find someone that believes in you, and we want you to be brave and believe in yourself. Now, how did I do?
Excellent.
In my summary. Is there anything else that you wanted to add in there? And then I'm going to be asking you for your mantra or your sort of slogans or sayings that you like around leadership.
I think you summarised that really well, Breda. And the only thing I would add would be the importance of self-belief and backing yourself. And that's probably the one aspect throughout my career, in terms of moving on and embracing the next step and taking on the next challenge. You know, you can have the mentors and you can have the people around you that will give you that support, but you've got to back yourself as well, and you have to want it to a certain extent. So the importance of maybe just sitting and self-evaluating what works for you, and ensuring that, you know, if there are the aspects of work that really fulfill you and you get a lot out of, absolutely go for it and believe in yourself along the way.
Brilliant. Yeah. Ronan, anything you add in?
Yeah, I think that summed it up very well. Now, I would say for anybody who is a leader, try and reflect upon, you know, how you act as a leader. Are you the kind of leader you wanted to be? Are you doing the things that you actually, you know, set out to achieve when you wanted to take on that role? And for anybody who wants to be a leader, try and work out what it is you would want to do in that role. All the things good and bad about your experiences to date. What did you like? What did you not like? What would you like to emulate? And what are the things you'd like to eliminate? I'm full of the E words today. In order to try and become the best leader that you can be.
Brilliant. Yeah, super. I love that too. And to finish us up now, my mantra about servant leadership, which I learned many years ago, and I've seen it role modeled. And servant leadership is what I am sort of working towards all of the time. And I was hoping that everybody else would try that too. And so my mantra is, be good to your people and they will be good back to you. And that's how I roll, and it works for me. What's yours, Maria?
First of all, I would fully endorse that one, and I've quoted that a few times. So, and it's very, very true. It's critical that you look after your people. I love Michelle Obama, and I love a lot of her quotes around the sort of self-belief piece and where she's come from. And one of the recent quotes of hers that I used was that piece around having, you know, strong values and never apologizing for your values. Stick to your values, be true to yourself, be authentic. And with a bit of that and a good education and a lot of hard work, that there's nothing you can't do. Michelle Obama believed that. I firmly believe that. So
I do too. Yeah, superb. I love Michelle Obama as well. Ronan, what advice have you got to close us off on?
I remember reading a long time ago from a rather strange source, Napoleon Bonaparte, the French mental dictator from the 1800s. In his memoirs, he had written at an early age that a leader is a dealer in hope. And I remember that sort of sticking with me, going, that's a really sort of profound saying for somebody who wanted to sort of conquer the world. But yeah, if you're in a leadership position and you can't offer hope to the people working for you as to the way forward, what you're going to do, how you're going to achieve things, how you're going to deliver, how you're going to get out of whatever mess you might find yourselves into, then you need to at least have the bravery to call it and at least, you know, say that this is something that we shouldn't do. So yeah, as a leader, you need to be able to offer that to the people working for you and yourself. And if you can't do that, you need to be brave enough to actually walk away from it.
I love that.
Yeah, so do I. So hope, looking after our people. And with that, we are going to wrap up today. We hope you have enjoyed it as much as we have. A massive thank you to Ronan Hughes and Maria McAllister for joining me today, for taking the time to share their expertise and their knowledge with all of us. We've heard from Belfast, Newry, and I'm in Monaghan. So a very typical virtual Zoom that we've done for you all today. So we hope you've enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this, please do share it with others, whether they are leaders already working, managing people, or whether you know of people that might learn something from this or find this inspiring. We want you to share this with them. So massive thank you to Ronan, Maria, and we will see you all again soon at the next Lean In event.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.